Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Upload Season 2, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, kind of spurred on because he found out that his mom is in a pretty rough spot where it's like she doesn't have any money. I even love the fact that she doesn't even want to ask Ingrid for help. Because it's already like, right, Ingrid comes from a wealthy family, and I think it's just a pride thing of like, well, for one, his mom never really liked Ingrid because of just who she is personality-wise and stuff. But I think it's also like, I don't want her kind of lording that over me even more. So, cause she's the one that gave her the idea of like, oh, you can become like a job gerbil? It's essentially, I guess it's supposed to be, and I guess that's supposed to be the equivalency of like TaskRabbit. I guess that was kind of like the thing they were going for there, but... Which I find that funny that I guess that in itself is what inspired Ingrid to do what she did in this episode, because she's been spending so much time in the suit. I love Nathan's just kind of like, yeah, sometimes she just zones out like that. Just kind of doesn't think much of it. It's like, how does she cover for that? I guess she doesn't, because Nathan's not, I mean, because what reasonable human being would lie about dying and uploading themselves, you know? So once again, that just speaks more volumes about Ingrid's unstableness of just how much she latches on to Nathan. But she ended up hiring a I'm about to literally call it TaskRabbit, a job gerbil person. And I love that the person was like, because she's like, don't worry, like, I cleaned out the suit like twice. It's like, yeah, but like the woman's like, yeah, but your toilet told me. She's like, why are you listening to it? It's a toilet. You're an effing toilet. It's like, Ingrid has a yeast infection. She's like, shut up. It's like, because she's spending so much time. Didn't she have like a UTI because of that as well? Because she's spending hours upon it, because you're only supposed to be in it for like 6 hours at a time. I think that's almost that like interesting. I mean, her circumstances are different, but I think it's also supposed to be ironic that someone like Ingrid would be in the suit all the time, because she wouldn't fit the demographic of the type of person who would. You would assume it'd be kind of like, let's face it, that's like a older, lonely dude type of thing. A dude that's like, oh, I can't get with anyone, and I'm like, that's most likely who would be the main clientele for something like that. So I think that's supposed to be the extra irony that someone like Ingrid, wealthy and pretty, is in this suit. You know, once again, it's a facade. It's a situation of her own making. So, but Nathan and Luke decide to kind of go on some Robin Hood stuff that, hey, there's plenty of people here with way more data that they could spend in a lifetime. And I love that we also catch up with Mr. Choke. Once again, I think that's going to be an interesting and also sad aspect to this stuff, because like he's been kind of like enjoying his afterlife, but this episode he kind of got screwed over multiple times. Well, for one, he's tasting penguin now because he's eating every type of peacock, but I think that's going to be the interesting thing, and I feel like you almost see this little glimpse of it in this episode, that once again it's like that afterlife doesn't mean anything once it's like, right, when you're rich and powerful, like, you know, you want to try everything in the world, and once you do, it's just like things get boring. So he's like, oh, no more peacocks, we'll move on to penguins. And I think eventually it's going to get to the point that he's tired of it. Like, he lost this episode because his life was always about winning and staying on top. And I think carrying over into your afterlife that goes on forever, or supposed to go on forever, how do you really like experience everything in the world when you've literally starting to experience everything that could exist and could be, that it grows boring and dull, because that's what you're trying to do, spice up your life. So I feel like that's going to be an element of his story that I feel like we're starting to see the cracks of it this episode. Hey, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the fact is, it's like, yeah, you ate all the different types of penguins. Oh, let's move on to penguins. Eventually, there's going to be so many endangered species and animals that you typically wouldn't eat that he's going to go for, once again, just to try everything, because what else does he have going for him, type of thing. And that's kind of like this very sad existence that's all you have going for you. And I think that's going to be something that really creeps up when it comes to his character. So that's what I'm kind of predicting. But yeah. But yeah, Nathan and Luke start taking just not a lot, but enough to kind of give to the 2 gig section, you know, hooking up Yang first, but then like other people. I love that poor guy without a penis. It's like, yeah, we should have put him in the front of the line. That was kind of our bad. We got to get that guy a dick. And fake Ingrid is, you know, wanting to be a part of it, and it's a really nice thing. I love that. obviously she's strutting around and distracting like the males, and Nathan takes off his shirt, strutting around to kind of impress the ladies. And I love that it's like one of the ladies is like, yeah, but isn't his arms kind of small? And Nathan's like, what'd she say? And Luke's like, no, I don't know what she's talking about. She's crazy. It's like, I love that Luke is Nathan's number one fan. I'd say Luke's probably even more of a fan of Nathan than Nathan is. No one, because Nathan's not as self-conceited as he used to be, but it's still there. But I think Luke's probably a bigger fan of Nathan than at least his second fan, because I still think he beats out Ingrid and Nora, and even Tinsley, who's become a recent fan of him. But speaking of that situation, Nora obviously was supposed to come back just so that she could, kind of give them backdoor access into the system and stuff like that. There's that interesting line from Mateo where he was like, later on, like, because, jumping ahead a little bit, Nora crushed it, and she was like, oh my God, like, I actually got the job. And he was like, oh, that's ironic. I was like, what's supposed to be the irony behind that? I guess that the fact is that you were supposed to infiltrate the place, and I feel like her resume, based on the stuff that was up there, she wasn't meant to actually get the job, so maybe that's the irony he's talking about, or maybe the fact is she kind of had to leave this all behind, was kicking it with the Ludds, and now she's back, and she's actually prospering. Maybe that's the irony behind it, that we kind of ended up helping you get the job you kind of wanted, that you like being in redesign. So obviously they were kind of mainly aimed. Like I said, I don't think she was even meant to get the cybersecurity job. It helped if it would, but it was like, hey, you were just supposed to kind of get in and get out. But it's like being able to kind of go back to her life. She's happy about that. Obviously, Alicia's happy to have her back. Tinsley, not as much, because you can tell Tinsley was watching over her shoulder. It's like, oh, okay. Because it's like, well, she doesn't know everything, but she knows, like, all right, there's something between Nathan, to some extent, Nathan and Nora, because it's like, oh, you were upset when I wasn't Nora, so, because he still doesn't even know Tinsley's name, to my knowledge. I love that it's like, wait, why do you have a 4.9? Why is your rating higher than mine? To be fair, it's like, we know that the only person that really helped her a lot with the ratings was Nathan. We know that was a big part of that. So Nathan's 5-star like helped out, but the others are saying like, yeah, but it's also because she has no self-confidence, I guess. So it kind of means that she kind of bends over backwards for the customers, where it's like you would normally kind of get annoyed, and yes, you do stuff for them, but it's like because she has no confidence, she has no shame, and she'll do whatever they ask her to without complain, and just will be so sincere about it. I guess maybe that's why she has such a high rating, like 4.9. Because I actually don't remember what Nora's ranking was. I remember the whole thing in season 1 was her trying to get a higher rating so she could like get better pay, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm remembering right, it's been a hot minute since I've seen season 1. I didn't talk about this in the first 2 episodes because those were I got to season 2 pretty late regardless, but that was recorded like those 2 episodes, much like Tales of the Walking Dead's first 3 episodes of my review, were recorded like a year ago, like over a year ago, in fact. But either way, tension and all that side, that's just kind of a me thing, just to let you know, like, that's why, like, at the time I had just rewatched season 1, but it's like, yeah, that was that long ago as well, so. I'm also wondering, is this the first time we've ever seen Craig outside of like the virtual stuff? Because obviously he popped up last episode, but that was like during a company meeting. I'm trying to remember, did he pop up in season 1? And I feel like anytime he popped up in season 1, it was in the form of like, in the like, virtually and not really. I was like, when I saw him, I was like, obviously it's like, well, I just saw you in the virtual version of yourself last episode, but I'm like, because I did rewatch the episodes like while I was reviewing, just so I can pick up screenshots and stuff. But either way, so I was like, huh, interesting. But I love the whole him and Lucy situation, because that detective is snooping around trying to figure out like what's going on. He had well, because for one, Lucy's trying to hide all her nudes of Luke, which is really jacked up. It's like, man, that is just all kinds of twisted, and she made sure to kind of save the backups. Rather than deleting the evidence, it's like, well, he's not going to be here forever, so the detective's eventually going to leave, so why get rid of my treasure? It's just like, oh, that's, I'd be very, very abuse of power, especially like, right, this, your client's privacy and like it's your job to kind of protect that privacy and you're taking advantage of it. It's like she's going to get found out eventually and fired. I'm sure Alicia's really going to take it because I had even loved later on when she showed it to Nora. Nora's like, what are you going to do about it? She's like, blackmail her? It's like, I mean, neither one of them has that much love for Lucy. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's like, Lucy's going to end up being the fall person for something, I'm sure, at one point. Plus, the Luke nudes are not going to help. It's probably going to, like, solidify it and kind of screw her over even more. I mean, to be fair, she helped them out because they were able to... they included a different storage device in there with, like, the backup that allowed them access to... the LUD's access to that network. But she was like, oh, this isn't the right ring. Picked up the other ring, didn't think much about it, and just, you know, put the other one... they're my Luke pics, you know. But obviously Nora is back. And I think it's so interesting. I guess in all this, I mean, she hasn't been, well, I was about to say, she's been going for a little while. I don't know how, Tinsley's been around enough to get like a 4.9 from all her clients. But it's like, oh, she still doesn't have, they still never made her like an avatar of her own. I was like, that's interesting. Or maybe she's just kind of fine with it. I love that it's like Nora saw some of the designs and did not like the outfits that were chosen. It's like, oh, you're lucky she didn't see the braids. It's like, Tinsley's like, thank you, Alicia, for not saying anything. I was like, ooh, that probably would have been bad. That probably would have been. I get it. Like Tinsley wanted to kind of modify it. It's like, right, I'm just you doing stuff to accentuate your natural beauty. It was very sweet, but it's also like, oh, I want to add my own little flair, like a little me to the whole thing. Because I saw her with the blue hair streak. It didn't even cross my mind. I'm like, oh, that was most likely a modification by Tinsley. I didn't even think about it when she first popped up because she figured out what Nathan was up to. I mean, Alicia knew exactly what Nathan was doing. She was like, right, there were people because it ends up being obviously a bigger thing of like it's 2 gigs, but it's still noticeable enough that a lot of the clients at Lakeview are like complaining about things being a little slow. Lucy was kind of brushing it off because it's like, oh, as long as they're not concerned about my taking advantage of Luke, then who cares? But yeah, they ended up finding out about the pen that Nathan had. They didn't know who had it, but they eventually tracked it because he was using it a lot. I did think it was pretty dope that it ended up being like a card game, poker, and them cheating the system. Cheating Mr. Chokes in particular is I kind of feel bad for him. Like I said, I think his storyline is just going to be like a sad decline for him. Just like, oh, like he was on top of the world and just like he doesn't like to lose, and you can tell that was a big jab for him this episode. So that's once again that adds just more to that what I was bringing up earlier about him, but. Nora was kind of happy knowing, like, hey, this is the Nathan she got to know, like, the sweet version of him without his memories. And now it's like, oh, seeing the good that he's doing with it and helping him out, changing the card at the last second because, quote unquote, Ingrid accidentally went full all in. But luckily, because Nora, they ended up winning. But the problem is she had to watch as, like, Nathan got close to Ingrid, even though it's like, right, that would have been their moment together, like that would have been a moment for them, like as Nora and Nathan. Once again, it's just kind of like sad because, hey, Ingrid's not the best person, and neither is Mateo. Like you can tell Nora's feeling it. Like it's like, oh, like it's just kind of like right, being able to cut like, hey, I actually got the job, and you're like Nathan would have been like super psyched for you. Mateo, not as much because there's a bigger picture at play here. You were saying like, oh, I'm going to go back and I'm going to be in danger, but it's like, but this is for the greater good of what our cause is bigger than you and me, yada yada yada. So it's like, ugh. So obviously things aren't going great on either front. I was almost hoping that job gerbil lady would be able to come back. She's like, oh my God, that was kind of a vacation for me. Your life is great. She's like, oh, I know. And Ingrid's like, yes, remove tip because she heard about all the stuff that her and Nathan got up to. And it's not until later on when she actually pops back in and her and Nathan are starting to do the thing. And he was like, this was the best day we've ever had. And they're making out. And you see Ingrid sink a little bit because it's like, wow. Like, his best day, our best day together was his day without me. Like, that makes that cut even deeper. Nathan doesn't think much of it, but it's like, for her, it's like, wow, like, it's going to make her kind of question a lot about, like, right, like, because in her mind, it's like, right, I've done so much, I've sacrificed so much for you. It's like, well, you've lied about making the ultimate sacrifice for him, but yes, you have sacrificed your own well-being and health just to be with him, but once again, that's your own fault for lying about, like, uploading yourself. So, but that's definitely, it's just Mr. Joe's, like, even even Ingrid's going to be on the decline. I think after that, I think this is going to be a shake-up moment for her of like, wow, like his best day with me was without me, like, you know. And maybe she's done a lot of self-reflection, but she's kind of like taking steps back this season. She's kind of just leaning more into who she is. But last season, she did have personal growth, but she's obviously, we're all works in progress, but she definitely is too. And I think this might be what she needs to become an even better person. And it might make her decide like, oh, what did that lady do? Like, I got to figure out, why was I so great as not me? It might make her go like, maybe I need to change as a person too. So it's just, there's a lot on that front. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. But they ended up getting a lot. They ended up scoring a lot. Yes, Nathan doesn't have the pin anymore. That poor old guy got blamed for it. So it's kind of a win-win. Not for that guy, though. But they were able to get a lot of gigs, which they can give to a lot of people, make sure everyone's taken care of. First and foremost, this time around, home dude with no dick is definitely got to be in front of the line. Also, I skipped over it, but I love the whole thing with Ivan. He's got like basically a Roomba, but it's wearing panties, and he's made it into like a sex doll, and it's putting on like a French maid accent, and he's just like, "Ooh, baby, not in front of company." It was something. I was like, "Oh, you weirdo!" Oh God, that's so weird. But either way, we also have the ending where the detective, because he looked at Nora. I guess he had looked at the surveillance footage enough that she seemed recognizable, so that when he ends up looking through it again, he saw Nora running from the guy that died. So he's like, right. So there is definitely something going on. She's involved. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on her, which is kind of bad timing too, because like obviously she's part of this Lud stuff, and obviously it's about, well, Nathan's the one that killed the guy, so got to keep that hush. Got to keep the fact that he's got his memories back hushed. Like there's a lot there. So it's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.